My name is Bill Dahlman. For those of you who don't know me, I've lived in Glen Ellen for about 23 years or so. I'm a volunteer. I'm not a librarian. And I've been volunteering at the library for the past probably about 9 years or so, once a month for technology topics. And today's topic is Excel Intermediate. So, longtime resident of Glen Ellen, former Army officer, about 8 years with Microsoft, and now I work with a partner that works with Microsoft as their Microsoft Alliance Manager. So very familiar with the ins and outs of the Microsoft applications. So I know this is billed as Excel Intermediate, but if you have any questions regarding anything, feel free to put them in the chat room. This session does not allow for a two-way chat, so I won't be able to hear you. So again, if you have a question, put it in the chat. Beth Clower will notify me, and we will take it from there. But in essence, we're going to be covering the following topics. We're going to go over charts and graphs. It looks like pivot tables and other tables, applying filters as needed. We're going to be going over formulas, how to put those in, some of the basic formulas that we have. And we're going to be inserting online pictures. I'll also show you how it's very simple to put in your own pictures just by clicking a different button if you would like. And show you how you'll be able to sort and filter data working with large spreadsheets. Might do that at the beginning. Various means to copy and paste, freezing panes, and then finally print preview. Now print preview, even though it's at the end, it's a very critical topic because when we used to and you'd send something to the printer, a spreadsheet, a lot of times it would just come disjointed, numerous pages. So I'm going to show you how you can select the specific part of the spreadsheet that you want and just select that for printing. And that is the best way to go with that. All right. Graphs, spreadsheet. Beth, does everyone have the demo spreadsheet, or am I just going from mine?
Unfortunately, you're just going from yours.
Okay. So the demo spreadsheet that we have is Kay's Flower Shop. So this is the type of spreadsheet that you might want to potentially work with. It has a variety of data. You'll see that there's already a graph here. And this is a three-dimensional pie chart, but you can do a variety of different pie charts, a variety of different graphs, rather. Well, we've got some questions already. Chat.
No, we just had someone who was inquiring about background noises.
Arnold, how the heck are you? No, the background noises are my family. I'm here at my summer cottage up here in Michigan. That's where I'm working this week during COVID. So sorry about that. That's just the way it is. Okay, so when we see this type of spreadsheet, I first want to ground everybody in the basics of all the Microsoft applications. So if we go up to the upper left, and you'll see that I have it, so it's just the ribbons. So I like to have it so it's a minimal so I can see most of the spreadsheet. But if you go up into this little drop down right next to my name, you can click it, and then you can show all tabs and all commands. And when you do that, you'll see all the tabs and commands are right there. So we'll keep it in this view for now because I think it's just easier for this type of setup. But in the event you ever want to work with a spreadsheet and have more room because you're already familiar with the commands in the various tabs, you just go to this little up arrow here, click on it, it removes it, and then you just go back to this little tab, the ribbon display options, click on that, go back to show ribbons and tabs, and it'll bring all the commands. What I was going to say is that all the Microsoft elements are all the same across the board in terms of you've got the file, you've got the home. The latest editions of Microsoft has autosave. You can see right there, because of that little circular icon, it means that it's already on autosave. These little left arrows and right arrows, this is the undo and redo. You'll see those that those are grayed now and they can't be utilized, but later on you'll see that we will be able to utilize them. By clicking on this little tab right here where it shows Customize Quick Access Toolbar, you'll see that by clicking that, you can choose what you want up here on this little upper left ribbon. So currently we have automatically save, we've got save, undo, redo, touch and mouse mode. But we'll just put another one here for now. We'll just do print, preview, and print. And you'll see that this little icon shows up right there. And if we do that, you'll see when I hover over it, it shows print, preview, and print. If I click on that, it brings me to the print preview mode. So I can see what that would look like if I wanted to print that. Continuing on across the upper right, we already showed you who's logged in. We already showed you where the ribbon display options are. This little slash is across all Microsoft functions. It's the minimize. The one next to it is the maximize or the restore. The X is standard feature across all that exits or closes the application. If you continue on down to the lower right, you'll see that you have the ability to adjust the focus. This does not affect the printing at all. This just affects what you see. So you currently see we're at 100%, but let's say we wanted it bigger. You can either click on the plus tab. By clicking the plus tab, it automatically increases it by 10%. Now you'll see it's 110%. You can also manually adjust this little lever right here, zoom. You can zoom it in, you can zoom it out, and you can always just click on this number, and you can always put in whatever number that you want in the custom field. So we'll just go back to 100, click OK or Enter, and now it's back to 100%. So again, that's just some of the basics of how to get around a various spreadsheet. So if we wanted to do a chart, you'll see that this chart has already been created. So let's just put in another chart for our purposes. Well, in order to do that, we're just going to highlight the areas that we want covered. And you'll see we're just going to go down to, I've highlighted from operating expenses all the way down to the bottom of rent. And now that this is already highlighted, we're just going to go up to the insert. And when we go to insert, you'll see that the commands are all these different charts that we have available. There's recommended charts. There's these various graph charts, line charts, pie charts. You can also click and expand this little arrow down here. You see that, it says See All Charts. When I click on See All Charts, you'll see another dialog box opens that shows all the different ones that you can see. And by that, just by simply clicking on it, you can see what this chart is going to look like before you click on OK to put it in your spreadsheet. So let's just look at some of these. These are the various recommended charts. Recommended. But then if you go to all charts, look at all these tons of charts that you have available to you. And you'll see a lot of them like stocks. So if you're tracking stocks, it'll already know that. So it'll click that for you. A lot of different charts. So if we're just going to put in a simple column chart, we'll just click on this one. Click on OK. And then you'll see this chart has automatically populated here in our spreadsheet. Well, we obviously don't want it here in the middle of our spreadsheet because that's going to be obnoxious and we won't be able to see it. But as you can see, look at my cursor right now. My cursor right now is across. It has 4 arrows, up, down, left, right. When the cursor is in that mode, that means you can move whatever in that. So we're just going to click down and we're just going to move that chart. So now we've moved it below the previous one. You also have the ability to, if you don't like these colors down there, you can switch them. You can switch. There's just a lot you can do with the charts in terms of getting them how you want them to look. So let me just see if there's any questions right now. No questions right now. Okay.
No, nothing's been typed in so far.
You got it. One just popped up.
We got a question. It says, if you click print, what prints?
All right, so good, Arnold. So Arnold, you wouldn't want to necessarily click print right now. You always want to go to that print preview first. So as you can see, even if I went up to the print preview, it's not highlighted because what I have selected right now is just this area of the data of the operating expenses and the chart tile. So you got to click out of it. But once you click out of it, you'll now see that you have the ability to look at the print preview. And if you do that print preview, again, never just click print directly. Click on that print preview and see what it looks like. So I'm going to get rid of me. So you see, if you just did it this way, then half your chart should be cut off. So let's just get to that right now. Let's just jump ahead to the print preview. Because most likely, if you want to print this out, you want to print all this area that you have done so far. So we're going to highlight this area. We're going to highlight it by either clicking and dragging the area that you want. I always like to use keystrokes, but as you can see, I've highlighted this area right now. So now we're going to go up to the print preview. And when I do that, you're going to say, oh, but Bill, it's still just covering that. So that's the neat thing about spreadsheets is that you have the ability through the settings just to print the area that you want. And you can do that by not clicking the active sheets, not clicking on print entire work, but just clicking on print the section. So when I click on print selection, it's just going to highlight, oh, it's not covering that. So it's beyond the page. So you'll see, Bill, you've printed on the print selection, but it's still being covered up. So then, in this particular case, there's a couple things I would do. I would keep it at landscape orientation. That's generally what you want to do with spreadsheets. You can also do portrait, but generally spreadsheets go with landscape, similar to PowerPoint presentations. You can do margins. So for this type of thing, I would want to reduce the margins. So we're going to go custom margins. I'm going to click on custom margins, then it brings up another dialog box. So I'm going to decrease the size of the top. Let's bring that down to a half. I don't really fiddle around with the headers and footers too much, but I decrease the top, bottom, left, right. I'm going to reduce the left to a half, the right to a half, and the bottom to a half. I'm also going to center the page horizontally and vertically. I just think it looks better. Then I'm going to click OK. But you say, Bill, it still doesn't all show up. So the final thing that I do when I'm printing something in a spreadsheet, this last dialog box, it says no scaling. What we're going to do, it says print sheets at their actual size. We're going to fit sheet on one page. By clicking that, you'll see that everything that we selected is now just going to be on one page. So again, before you print anything, I highly encourage you to go to print preview, make sure you adjust the margins, and make sure you click on fit sheet on one page to the specific area that you want to print. Okay. Now I know it talked about pivot tables, but pivot tables, you generally need larger data. Let me see if I can just do something. And generally when you're working with a spreadsheet to create a pivot table, you can't have any spaces, and it needs to have column headers, and it needs to have row headers as well. So the ideal scenario to create a pivot table from this is if it was not discontinuous. It's if this was all data with no blanks. I don't even know what's going to happen if we just select this. To do pivot tables, it's kind of ironic because you have to go Insert, and then you click on Pivot Table, and then it'll open up a separate tab, a new worksheet, highlighting the rows and the columns. Yeah, it's not valid. So again, for a pivot table, it needs to be continuous data. We ran a class on pivot tables last month, and so maybe in a future class, we can just concentrate on pivot tables. This is just not the ideal data to set up a pivot table. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to the Word document to see what we need to cover next. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to ask. Okay. Let's see, apply filters and advanced filter techniques. Again, when you want to use filters, it generally needs to be continuous data, because then you can, I will show you back on the other tab how you can put filters on. And we'll look at the various worksheets to see if there's a worksheet that where we can apply a filter to. But if we don't do that, then we're going to go into formulas. So I'm going to stop sharing this and get back to the spreadsheet. All right, so let's see if there is So I'm looking at the various spreadsheets that we have here in our demo to see if there is one, possibly. Let's see if this one. Let's see if this one we might be able to apply. We might be able to apply filters to. To do filters, you go up to the Data tab. You go up into the data, you'll see that one of the options is filter. There we go. So you'll see that all these filters automatically populated. Didn't have to put them in. All I had to do was click filter. And generally when you click filter, so for example, if I click this first downward arrow underneath supplies, it'll bring up another dialog box. And typically the first one is sorting A to Z or Z to A. So let's see what it looks like without filtering. So you'll see that we got roses, carnations, lilies. So these are not in alphabetical order. So by clicking on the filter tab and using this drop down arrow, and if we go to sort A to Z, you'll see that it's now ordered, and all of this data is also ordered alphabetically. Let's say we didn't want to get that and we want to go back to what we previously had. We can either go back here and click on this, and we can either sort Z to A. We could go back to the filter tab and we could say clear the filter. But ideally, because we want roses back on the top, we would just go to the undo button and click undo. And that brings the roses back to the top. Similarly, if you want to look to say, hey, what was the best or the worst for Q1? So for the first quarter, you can just click on, these are costs. So if we click on the drop down arrow, we can go smallest to largest. So miscellaneous was the least cost. Roses were the most cost. If we want to do it largest to smallest, roses were the largest cost, followed by tropical, followed by carnations. And you might say, hey, Bill, what are these little lines off to the right? Well, these are what are called spark lines. And what these do is they just give a quick indication of the direction is that the cost of roses are going down. Tropical is going up and down. It's just a quick visual indication. Beth, I apologize in advance, and students. I just got a notification that our internet connection is acting fuzzy. So if for any reason we drop, just hang on for a couple minutes. It should reconnect.
No worries, we'll do that.
The other thing I want to show from this is if we highlight this data, okay, again, I want to show a pivot table. We're going to eliminate this row right here, 15. I'm just going to remove that. So now we have continuous data. We're going to highlight it. I want to see if I can get a pivot table out of this. So we've highlighted this. We're going to go to Insert. We're going to go Pivot Table. Supply costs in that range. New worksheet. Okay. There we go. Thing about a pivot table is that it automatically creates it in a new worksheet. Anything that is verbal, alpha, is going to be a row. Anything numeric is automatically going to be a column. So I click on supplies. it'll automatically put it here in the rows. But if we want to see what the totals are, because Q2 totals are a number, if I click that, it should populate it in the values. And then by the columns, if we just want to look at the Q1, bring that down as a column. All right, so this spreadsheet right here is not the best example because it already has sums in the middle of it. It has a Q1 sum and a Q2 sum. But if it didn't have those sums, it'd be a better example of it. Again, if you want a specific pivot table lesson, we can do that. We conduct those classes as well. Let's get into some formulas now. So total expenses right here. This is a formula. How do you know it's a formula? Because you look up here in this box right here. And this says, it indicates what's in that cell. If I click at any other cell, this huge dialog, this huge box up here shows you what contains in that cell. So by this, it says 120. So you know that in that box is just a number, 120. But if you went down here to the total expenses, it's a formula. Now, this is a relatively simple formula. All it is equals the sum B22 and B23. So B22 is the total operating expenses. B23 is the total cost of goods sold to give you the total expenses. And then you'll say, well, I don't want to copy this. You know, if I have numerous months across, I don't want to have to manually type that. Well, the great thing is you can just copy and paste it, and it'll automatically migrate over B22 and B23 to C22 and C23. So if we go to this next box, you'll see that it shows C22, C23. So let's just do some practice. We're just going to copy phone through rent. I just did Control C for copy. I'm going to open up another tab, another worksheet, so we can just practice. Okay. So the sum function. When you're going to do a sum, that's probably one of the easiest formulas you can do. You simply type equals, then the word sum, and you'll see a whole bunch of different formulas automatically populate down below. When you're doing a sum, you can either do B1 plus, oops, my bad, equals sum. Well, generally when you do that, you're just going to highlight from B1 down to B5. So you see where my cursor is. I'm holding down the Shift key and the arrow down key. So now I'm highlighting all of those, B1 through B5, phone, electric, water, expense, and rent. Then I'm going to go end parentheses. And you can follow along with the formula that I'm typing right up here. And then you're just going to hit enter. So boom, there we've got the total of all those expenses. And now because you do not want to have to type that formula each and every time, you can just copy that. So you can either highlight it and then go right click, copy, click the next one, right click, copy, paste, paste options. We're just going to go standard paste, so it brings that exact same formula, but you'll notice that it brings over the C1 to C5 as opposed to the B1 and B5. But instead of manually doing that for every column, an easier way to do it, we're going to undo what we just did. When you're highlighting this row, when you're highlighting this cell that you've already created the formula for, you'll see that in the lower right, it's more of a square. You see right there, it's more of a square. And when the cursor turns from a clear cross to a black cross, we're going to hold down the shift key and we're just going to drag it over. And that will just copy the formula all the way across. So you can see if by clicking on this one, you'll see that it's already E1 through E5, the sum of those. Similarly, this is all the totals. So you can easily just bring that over. If I do bring it over, it probably shows some sort of error for this F6 cell because nothing's in there. But if we bring it over to G, it'll bring the total for G. Now, because these are numbers and these specifically are dollar amounts, we probably want this in a dollar amount. So let's just format these so these are in a dollar format. So we're going to highlight all these cells that we want. There's a couple different ways we can do this. We can either right click. It brings up a quick dialog box where we can choose the dollar sign. Or if you're in Europe, you can choose any other currencies that you want, pounds, euro, yen, Swiss francs, whatever you would like. We're going to stick with English. And then you also have the ability to, in another dialog box, not necessarily here, if you go into the numbers, you'll see that you've got arrows in and arrows out. So what this means is you can increase or decrease the decimals. So if you're not so concerned about the 77 and 33 cents, I clicked it twice and now it's just rounded to the nearest dollar. But we're going to put it back to the various cents. All right, so let's see if we have any questions so far. No questions so far. All right, good to go. Let's go back to our initial Q1. Oh, so the other thing that they had right here was the monthly average. So let's make sure that we know how to do that average. We'll go back to the spreadsheet we just created. The average in there. We're just going to take from scratch. So if you want to know what the average is for the phone over these past 3 months, again, it's a simple formula. And as soon as we start to type average, we're going to go open parentheses, right up there, open parentheses. We're going to highlight B1 through D1, right up there, and then close parentheses. And then hit enter. There you go. There you get the average of those 3 months for your phone expenses. For electric, we'll do the same thing. Again, how do we do that? You see that little dialog box? See that little X right there? That little tiny square? We're going to click and drag that down to rent. And there you see that is the average for those months. So then when you do something like this, because G was the total of all of them, so let's just do this advanced. We want to make sure that G is just the sum of B, C, and D, and that's what the formula is. But we're going to eliminate these, so we've got to do it from scratch. So if G, we want the year-to-date totals, we're going to recreate that formula ourselves. So in B1, we're going to have it equals the sum, open parentheses. We're going to highlight B1, C1, D1, close parentheses. And there we go. That is the sum for those 3 months. Again, I just created this spreadsheet off to the side so you could see how they got these formulas here in Q1. I think another one that looks like pretty important is this percentage. So a percentage, as this one indicates, it is, and if you ever want to know what it is, you can see what it is right here. It's B24, so B24 total expenses divided by B10, gross income. We can just see that manually up there. Another way to do it is by highlighting that cell, I hit the F2 button, and by hitting the F2 button, so Foxtrot 2 or F2, it shows you right in the cell what that formula is. So it shows you it's total expenses divided by the gross income, and that is your percent of income for expenses. And it's across the board. Because a percentage is typically just something divided by something else, it doesn't require a formula such as sum or average. How about questions? Any questions right now? All right, good to go. Let's go back to see, I'm going to stop sharing and look at our sheet to see what we should cover now. All right, inserting online pictures. I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to go back to our spreadsheet. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to insert an online picture. To insert an online picture, to insert any type of picture, you're going to go up into Insert. So we're going to Insert, and you'll see that various different commands are available, some of which are pictures, whether they're online pictures, shapes, icons, etc. We're going to click on Online Pictures. And because most of us are working while we're connected to the internet, it then allows us to search online pictures. So I'm just going to, flowers are right here. So we're just going to click on flowers. And let's just pick one. We're going to pick it's Kay's Flower Shops. We're going to say bouquet of flowers. We're going to put that in the search engine. There we go. So we're going to click on this first one. I've highlighted it. Now I'm going to click on Insert. Boom. So there you see that this image has been inserted. Well, let's say you think, I want to print this out so I can show whatever, my banker, my board of directors, or whoever. I want to put this in part of the document that I want to share. And remember, we did the print preview function. So let's do some manipulating here. We're first going to get rid of some of these extra rows up here. I just deleted that row. And delete that row. I'm going to move the chart. I'm going to click. You'll notice that all the circles are on all the corners and the sides, and the cursor is now a cross. So I'm going to bring that up. Now I'm going to click and drag I'm going to highlight the image that we just inserted. Again, the cursor is a cross with arrows. I'm going to bring that up here. Maybe make it a little smaller. Numerous ways you can manipulate this. So now when I go into, if I want to select this, select the entire area that I want covered. Now if I go into the print preview, again, no scaling. Custom margins should already be applied, but we'll just double check. Custom margins, they weren't already applied, so we're going to go down top by a half, left by a half, right a half, bottom a half, and the center of the page horizontally and vertically. I'm going to click OK. And then scaling, I'm going to go fit sheet on one page, and then you should see what we were just looking at previously. So then you could print this out to show whoever you wanted without wasting any paper. The other thing you can do with pictures that you've inserted, so not only do you have the ability to move them where you want, but if you noticed previously, I held the corner of that diagram, of that picture that I inserted, to where it's the diagonal arrow. I clicked, I held it down, then you can manipulate the size of it. The other thing you can do, while the cursor was in there, I right-clicked on it, and you have the ability to crop. Crop is pretty cool. So if you go up to this dialog, it says crop. It allows you to reduce like some of the white space that you have around it. So I'm going to go up to these corners that are darkly highlighted. I'm just going to bring it in. Similar down at the bottom. I'm going to right click, go to crop. Just going to crop all that white space out. So that when you do print it, it just shows everything that you want to show. Especially if you're making something like a family calendar, comes in handy. You know, someone has taken a picture of the family, but there's a whole bunch of background out there. You don't really need that for the family calendar. Well, you have the ability to manipulate that so it looks just like you want it to do. And not only do you have the ability to insert online pictures, but if you just click on pictures, it'll bring up your normal, all of the stuff that you have out there. So any pictures that you might have, you'll have the ability to, these are all my family photos over the years. So you'll have the ability to insert any of those as you would like, whether you keep them in the cloud as I do, or whether you keep them on your desktop. Or if you keep them on a hard drive, they would be down here. All right, any questions? I'm going to stop sharing and see what we have next. Sort and filter data, work with large spreadsheets. Well, this is not really a large spreadsheet. I might have another spreadsheet that we can work with. Let me see if I can call up another spreadsheet. All right. All right, so when I teach the pivot table class, this is the one that I utilize. So when you're working with large data, such as this spreadsheet here, you'll see that you've got column headings across the board, you've got row headings across the board, and this goes down a long way, so I'm not going to take it all the way down. An easy way, if you go Control Dot or Control, nope, missed that. So you'll see that it's all contiguous data. So this is the type of data that you'd like to use with filters. So this would be the case where if you're looking at a large table like this, you can go up to Data, and you can go up to Filter. And then again, all of these automatically show up. And again, you can click them by A to Z. Or if you just want to look at everything that Meg has done, you can just select on Meg. And there's just everything Meg has done. Meg has done a lot. You can just go Clear Filters. So now that has cleared all the filters, but it's still alphabetical. But if I want to go back to the original one, now I'm just going to undo a couple times, and you'll see back to where we are. The great thing about Excel is that it automatically filters all of this data for you. Again, you can sort it large, smallest to large, large to small. You also have the ability to get into some advanced filters. We're not going to do that now, but a wide variety of options. All right, let's see if there's any questions. No questions, stop sharing. Let's see what we should cover next. Share screen. Freeze panes and print preview. So we've already done print preview. So let's do freeze panes. Freeze panes comes around when you want to print multiple sheets and some you might be able to consider it easier. It really comes more into play. I found it in a Word document. But if you want to let's see would be a good, oh, now let's go back to that other document for freezing panes. It's a better example. So a lot of times you'll want to freeze panes. So you'll see, here we see the salesperson, product, region, customer. But if you scroll down, because this has like 700 rows, you say to yourself, huh, what was that top one? And then if it's a large enough spreadsheet and you scroll over to the left, to the right rather, you say, huh, what was that on the far left I was looking at? Well, the great thing about freezing panes, it allows you to freeze it in a number of ways. The two most common are either freezing the top row. So we're going to go up to View, Freeze Panes. When you freeze panes, you need to make sure that you have a top row with columns. And just by clicking on the top row, it freezes the top row. So what that allows is that when you scroll down, you'll see no matter how far down you go, you're always going to have these top rows: salesperson, product, region, customer, date, etc. Now, if your spreadsheet, as I said, goes way over to the right, you might want to do additional freezing beyond that. So you can either go up, you can either undo what you've previously done, or you go to the freeze panes, you unfreeze, so it unlocks everything. And then we're just going to freeze. We want to freeze it right here at B2. So this is going to freeze it, so everything above doesn't move and everything to the left doesn't move. So we're going to freeze panes, keeps rows and columns visible while the rest of the worksheet scrolls based on the current selection. So that's why I specifically selected B2. So I'm going to click there. Now you'll notice, go all the way down, those columns are still the same. And when I go to the right, you'll still be able to see the salesperson's name. Very handy feature, especially when you're dealing with large amounts with very big spreadsheets. All right, folks, those are all the topics we were supposed to cover today. It's a little bit different online when I don't have any interaction. So, do you have any questions? If so, what are they? Type them in. Okay, we got a question. Why is it sometimes not possible to enter data in Excel cell? You have to click on another sheet and then go back to enter data. Boy, I wish we could talk right now, Arnold. I wish I could hear. I would have to see that specific example. A lot of times spreadsheets are linked. So you might find that it is linked to a different cell. It's linked to a different worksheet. So you're unable to enter that. You know, a lot of times those involve some very complicated formulas that refer to a different spreadsheet. And they locked. I know that in my work, a lot of times spreadsheets are locked and they're not allowed to be edited unless you're working from the master spreadsheet. Might not help, but I really have to see this specific question that you're asking about, Arnold. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Everyone's staying healthy. Everything's staying COVID free. I wish I had my mask on. I should have it on right now. I don't want to infect you guys.
I'm not seeing any other questions come up, Bill. So I think as long as nobody else has another question, I'll give them maybe another 15 seconds to type in a question if you have one. But otherwise, you've covered everything. And I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm not seeing anything else come up.
Well, that being said, folks, you know, I greatly appreciate you joining the call. I look forward to when we all have our vaccines and we're able to meet again live back in our library. We all love our library. Thank you, Beth, for working at the library. Thank you for opening it. It's been so much fun to go back there and pick up real hardcover books again. It's always been fun. Yeah, so I look forward to seeing everyone back in the library. Stay safe. Reach out if you have any other questions, and thank you very much.